Hello and welcome back to my channel, The Future Empress. My name is Anna and today I'm gonna talk about the books I read in July. Technically, I read 13 books in the month of July. However, I already talked about the first two of them, which were The Rise of Chokshi and The Boy in the Red Dress. I've already talked about that in my mid-year wrap-up, where I wrap all the books that I've read so far in 2020. I still got 11 books to talk about, so let's just get into it. So the first book I have to talk about is It by Stephen King. I actually don't read that much horror. I began dwelling a bit into horror with Imaginary Friend and Camp Red Moon, but I've not read that much horror before. However, I know it's a genre that I really enjoy because my favorite animes are horror, so I wanted to delve into the book genre as well, so I chose to go with the classic It, and I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. I really liked the time that it's set in and the 2 time frames as well, like the 50s and the 80s, how we switch back and forth between the timelines. I really enjoyed the way we learn through the story. The thing is, I have actually only watched It Chapter 2, the movie. I never watched Chapter 1, so for me, it was like I only knew one part of the story, and that's why I really appreciated how the book tells the story. It's 2 parallel timelines you follow, and you discover the things from like the 50s and the 80s at the same time, whereas the movies you're shown from the children's perspective in chapter 1. I think I did not watch the movie, so I don't know. And then chapter 2 you see from when they're grown-ups. I understand it's a book that was published in the late 80s. For the time it was the present. For the readers that read it in the 1980s and 90s, it was the present day for them. But for me, for someone who really loves the 80s and 90s setting as a historical fiction, I really enjoyed it. I think the book still holds up with that considering. Oh, and I really enjoyed the writing, so I'm definitely gonna pick up more books of Stephen King. However, Richie's use of the N-word felt unnecessary, because you can have a book where you use the N-word. It just has to be shown clearly that it's challenged and wrong, at least coming from a white person. And also because he calls his friend that too. And then there's a certain scene in the end of the book that I just felt unnecessary and honestly uncomfortable to be a part of as a reader. Maybe Stephen King can justify it happening. However, I think that it was wrong of him to put us as readers into a fly on the wall thingy, so we like witness it like step by step as it's happening, because it was very uncomfortable to read. And texted my friends who knows of it and probably knew of this scene as well, because I admit that I knew the scene was gonna happen, but I had forgotten it. Like, I had been spoiled about it long ago by Books and Lala or Chelsea Reads. I don't remember what vlog I was watching, but I have been spoiled before about that particular scene, but I had just put it out of my mind. I'd completely forgotten it would happen, and when it began, I was like, oh right, this happens in this book. But I still really enjoyed the book, and the characters are so good, and 4 out of 5 stars, very good, and I am quite happy that I read it. The next book I picked up in July was A Song Below Water by Bethany Morrow. I picked this one up because I watched Kayla's mermaid vlog where she read books with mermaids in it, and it sounded interesting, and I needed a new audiobook to listen to. That one I gave 4 out of 5 stars as well. I really enjoyed how it gave me the Siren by Kira Cass vibes. It was quite similar to that book, however the Siren by Kira Cass is a bit more nonsensical in a way. Like the magical realism feels what I feel like magical realism is, because sometimes I have a hard time getting into it because I feel this genre is so undescribable. You can't really touch it with your hands because it's so vaguely described. However, in this book it was very contemporary-ish feels, and I loved how it balanced the siren aspect of like the fantasy aspect of the story with like contemporary present world settings. It was so perfectly written. It felt realistic while still being fantastical, and honestly I think that is what magical realism should be. You get to know about the history of sirens in this book. They're like brought back to the 1900s where there's a revolution and stuff like that happening, and it's just further on to feel like this is real, like these events happened. It's not something just pretend. However, I felt like there was a lacking in the development of the other creatures in this book. Like there's a gargoyle. The other character isn't a siren, but she is something, which I'm not gonna say because that is a spoiler. But I felt like there was a lack of development, like world development from other creatures than the siren, and that's one of the main reasons I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars instead of a 5-star read. The world building is usually where my problem lies with magical realism, and so it doesn't surprise me. It was still a very good read. So the next book I picked up was also an audiobook, and that was Once More Upon a Time by oh, I can't pronounce that name for the life of me.
Audible Originals presents Once More Upon a Time, a novella, written by Roshani
Chokshi. Oh my god. I am so sorry. Like, I am a foreigner living in another country. All the Danish people mispronounce my name as well, so I know how frustrating it can be. But I also, like, semi don't care with my own names. But I am so sorry for not being able to pronounce this name. It's a short audiobook. It's like 3 to 4 hours. It was like any other fairy tale. I liked how Roshani Chokshi put her own twist on the fairy tale of the 12 dancing princesses. It followed the norm and was pretty predictable, and that's like something you can expect from fairy tales. It was just an enjoyable and quick read, so I'm happy I read it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I'm gonna talk about is My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. Oh my god, these names. I'm not complaining about the names, I'm complaining about my own ability to not pronounce the names.
My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite.
Oyinkan Braithwaite. That's my best shot. I'm so sorry. I listened to this one on Audible as well. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was I think my first dive into a thriller book. However, I think this was the wrong book to go with since there was technically no mystery, so equals not that thrilling. It just confused me because it's supposed to be a thriller, but it's not that thrilling when you know who's the serial killer and you're just following a person who keeps covering it up. By only saying that, it would only be like a 2 stars from me. However, I chose to view the book as from the main character's perspective and her journey and her character development, and with that it's a 3 stars because I really enjoyed to read along with her conflictions and thoughts and just everything she went through and what she ended up doing in the end. It was a short audiobook, and I think if it had been longer it actually would have deflated the purpose of it. So I'm glad that it was a short book. And yeah, it was just honestly, it was interesting to follow the main character, and that is the main reason it got a 3 out of 5 stars from me. And then the reading rush started, so the rest of the books in this wrap-up I'm gonna talk about, I already talked in depth during my reading vlog that I filmed for the reading rush. If you want to see my reactions to the books as I read them, go and watch that. The first book I finished during the reading rush was The Invasion by Peadar or Guilín. I give this one 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's a sequel to The Call, and The Call is just this dystopian world where the Fae is the bad guys, and it's about teenagers having to survive against them. I just really loved what The Invasion did to the world development of this world. And like the first book, I just really enjoyed the setting in Ireland. It's not somewhere I read from often, and I've not been in Ireland. So it was definitely interesting from that perspective. And the ending, I was a bit confused how to feel about it. It ends pretty clear. Like, it's a pretty clear ending, and I actually really liked how it ended. However, I still had some lingering thoughts where I was wanting something else to happen, but still, it was a pretty good read. And then I read The Prince and the Dressmaker by Wang. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars because this is honestly just the best and most adorable read that I could pick up after the intensity that was The Invasion. The art style was so stunning, and I loved the dresses that the dressmaker came up with, and just how much personality was in them. And just I love the setting, like the historical setting, because usually with these kind of books we get like a fantasy historical setting, but this is set in Paris in the modern age, so I really enjoyed that. And I also just enjoyed the conversations this book had with the characters, like the conversation between the main two characters and the conversations between the people related to them, and just everything was so cute and wholesome. And we stand a king in a dress. That's all I'm gonna say. It was just so freaking adorable. Read A Prince in the Dressmaker. You won't regret it. And the next book I finished in July was How to Cheat a Dragon's Curse by Cressida Cowell. I give this one 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. This is probably my second favorite in the series. This is the 4th one. The stakes just felt higher than before, even though it's a middle grade, but they just felt higher, and I really enjoyed the expansion of the world, that the phenomenal concept that the world is round and not flat, like mind blown. It was just overall funny, and especially with the magical potato that only is found in America, which is so fucking dumb. The plot twist in the end, I did not see that coming, and that's like not something that happens often in middle grade. And then I read The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by author Conan Doyle. I gave this collection of short stories 4 stars in total. I enjoyed some, didn't like some. I just want to say that Sherlock Holmes is honestly such a profound character, and in this book I realized more things about him than I knew before, and I also realized that I didn't particularly like Dr. Watson that much. Unpopular opinion maybe? I don't know. My favorites in this one is definitely A Scandal in Bohemia. That is my top favorite in this one. And then The Boscombe Valley Mystery and The Blue Carnival. Those were my favorites. While I did not particularly enjoy The 5 Iron Pips and The Engineer's Thumb, the thing about The 5 Orange Pips is just I didn't like the ending at all, and The Engineer's Thumb just didn't, it wasn't a mystery. It was just boring. And then I read Skammerens Datter by Lene Kaaberbøl. This is also called The Shameless Daughter in English. It's a Danish book about a 12-year-old girl, 11-year-old girl, I don't remember, who has the ability to look into other people's eyes and see what kind of things they've done that they're ashamed of. Like, this is a nostalgic read for me since it's technically a story I have known since I was 10-11 years old, since it's technically a required reading in Denmark, and I watched the movie as well. So it both felt nostalgic and awkward since I'm not that used to reading Danish in fiction. It was awkward for me to connect because the language was a barrier, and the formatting is very old style of Danish kind of writing, so that also like hindered my connection with the story like fully. However, Dina made up for it, and Dina and Nicodemus's relationship definitely made up for it. I can't wait to continue with the series and see where they go and what happens with all the characters, not only them. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars as well, and yeah, really enjoyed it. The next book I read was That Blue Sky Feeling by Okura. This was such a beautiful story about self-discovery and acceptance. It was truly a wholesome journey to read along to. I particularly enjoyed Nursiro's character and the dynamic between him and Sanada. Like, it's the main thing driving the book. However, I couldn't quite let the 26-year-old ex-boyfriend go, considering these two are only in high school. Even though the ex-boyfriend's actions, so far as I know, are just pure and he doesn't do anything wrong, but I still kind of felt that it was inappropriate how he just put himself in their lives. Because for one thing, he's 26 years old. What the fuck is he doing with these high school kids? And number two, he's an ex-boyfriend. He should have just get the hell out and don't bother the other one anymore. However, I still gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was wholesome, and the only thing that's wrong with it was the 26-year-old. Everything else was wholesome, beautiful, and can't wait to read volume 2. The last thing I read in July was The Tree Dragon Society by Katie O'Neill. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. This is probably the most beautiful graphic novel that I own. The art style itself is just stunning, but the character and the story itself is also just beautiful and wholesome again. And it's just, I don't know, just blew me away. Like, I knew it would be a stunning read because I had seen the art style, but the wholesomeness of the story just warmed my heart, and honestly, it deserves 5 out of 5 stars, even though I'm a bias towards stunning and beautiful and just picturesque, aesthetically beautiful art style. It still deserves 5 out of 5 stars. It was just so cute. The friendship and companionship and dragonship in this was stunning, and I even compared my dogs to cheat dragons in my vlog, so go and watch that if you want to know which cheat dragons my dogs are. You can skip to the end in that vlog. And I'm so happy that I ended July with this one. So for the stats of my July wrap up, excluding The Rise of Curiosity and The Boy in the Red Dress, I read 2 5-star reads, which is like, I read more 5-star reads because I'm not that picky, and or I don't know, do I just know what books I pick to read? That's why I have a lot of 5 stars normally, or am I not a difficult reader to please? I don't know. However, there was a lot of 4 stars this time around. I read 7 4 stars this time. I think that's just a lot of 4 stars, but 4 stars is really good as well. I only have 2 3 stars, so it's a pretty solid month of reading, I would say. That's it for my July wrap up. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time. Bye!